All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your patience. We are now ready to finally get started. I will get the introductions very quickly. So if you need any more information, I'll be around, but I will blast through them to let Karolina speak. All right. Welcome to Code Dive Conference, organized for the 11th time by Nokia Poland. We are in the gorgeous space of New Horizons Cinema, which I used to work in, so I'm very happy to be back. But my name is Michał, and I will be host of the room number 7, which we are in right now. Right, last year Nokia took us to outer space, and today, this year, Nokia takes us back to the roots. So this year's edition focuses on C++ because it was founded around this technology. Among the speakers, we will host renowned experts such as Bjarne Stroustrup, Hanna Dusikowa, Herb Sutter, and Jason Turner. This year, Nokia had the privilege to co-organize the ISO C++ Standardization Committee meeting, and as a result, we had lots of great speakers focusing on this language, especially. While C++ will dominate rooms number 1 and 9, this room number 7, will open its doors to other fascinating technologies such as cybersecurity, no-code tools, and even discover the secrets of effective communication and productivity. We will have several breaks, actually 3 of them. The coffee breaks, two coffee breaks, will last 30 minutes each, and then we'll have lunch break. Sorry, glossing over the notes to go quickly. Lunch break, 1 p.m. to 2:15. During the lunch break, there will be a period of 15 minutes lightning lectures, so you can enjoy them as well and take your food afterwards. If you're hungry, you can purchase food from Pan Pretzel on the 2nd floor and enjoy coffee from Bike Cafe. Also, there is a coffee place and restaurants of the cinema on the ground floor. If you're tired, stressed, or your back hurts, or you just want to clear your head after an inspiring presentation, you can use our forest relaxation zone on the 1st floor, and there will be a massage waiting for you. Each massage will last 10 minutes, and they are available till starting 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. We had a long list of partners and organizations helping us this year. So we would like to extend our gratitude to following partners: Helion, Challenge Rocket, Women in Project Management, The Protocol, Wrocławski Park Technologiczny, Programista, Mamo Pracuj, No Fluff Jobs, Strefa Kodera, Bulldog Jobs, Politechnika Wrocławska, Radio RAM, Radio Wrocław, Uniwersytet Ekonomiczny, and the conference has its honorary patronage of the president of the city of Wrocław. Before I introduce our first speakers, let me thank you very much for joining us and being with us on the 11th Code Dive Conference. Right, let's start. And our first speaker is Karolina Malanowska-Chmiela, who is a web developer and UX designer at Nokia Poland with over 8 years of experience in programming and design. Karolina is passionate about user-friendly web design, and she's passionate equally, more so, we will find out, about sharing knowledge about the importance of good UX design. Fun fact, Karolina started a little handmade crafts brand called Moje Miłe Rzeczy, or in English, My Kind Things, as she loves creating things even after hours. She's also a Pushing the Cat fan. Before Karolina joins me on stage and then takes the stage, please remember you can rate every speech on the conference app. So we will greatly appreciate your feedback on everything that happens today. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming to the stage Karolina Malanowska-Chmiela.
Thank you, Michał. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all here, despite three things. First, such an early hour. I hope you had your own sip of morning coffee. Second thing, a keynote speech in room number 1 from the designer of C++ language. I'm so happy to see you here, really. And the third thing, UX in a title. I'm impressed you are here and want to learn something about user experience. In this presentation, I will share with you some tips, some rules, and some principles that you can use in your daily work to write code that make another developer smile. So without further ado, let's move to the agenda. First, we will start with defining the common ground, and I will explain the general understanding UX to you, so you know what we are going to talk about. Then we will cover 2 fields of UX principles. First is Gestalt principles, and the second one is Nielsen heuristics. At the end, we will cover a practical application, so we will modify some code to be more readable. Okay, let's start. The title of this presentation is UX of Code. As code is the backbone of every software, every app you have on your phone, let's think more about the experience of coding itself. Should we even care? So let's focus on the UX part of the title. And when we speak of UX, user experience, and search for some job offers and so on, we often see these 2 terms together, user experience and user interface. And to explain them to you, I've prepared a really reliable example. And give me a minute. Today, we are going to talk about ketchup. Yes, ketchup. There is a meme in the internet. Oh, we have a drill situation here. All right. Thank you. Okay, so about the ketchup. There is a meme in the internet that tries to explain to us what ketchup is and what UX and UI is. So let's start with the first bottle. This is for you in the first row, and this is for you in the back. I have a ketchup. And this particular bottle of ketchup is often referred as the UI, a user interface. And we can guess why. It has a lid on the top, and all the liquid inside goes to the bottom, so it's hard to get out. Let's move to another bottle. This bottle, on the other hand, is referred as a user experience bottle because it has a lid on the bottom, and all the liquid inside goes to the bottom, so it's easier to get out. We don't have to fight to have the ketchup on our meal. So this meme tells us 2 things. First, that UI is more about color theory, visuals, and so on, and how the product looks for us. But user experience is about the experience, about testing the usability, making some research to find out if the bottle works well, and about information architecture, and so on. But the second thing that this meme tells us is that these fields are separated. But what if I tell you that this is not true? What if I tell you that this first bottle is indeed a UI, but it produces this particular user experience of being hard to get the ketchup out? You know, I have to shake and basically fight with this bottle to get something out. And what if this particular ketchup bottle has this particular UI that produces this particular user experience? We can put ketchup on our meal, and we are happy now because we don't have to fight a lot. All right, so now we know that UX/UI is not about two separated fields, but it's more about UX and UI, because these fields actually influence each other. But to even prove my point more, I will tell you a story of the ketchup fraud. So it's not a coincidence that I have here a ketchup made by Heinz, because this is quite a popular ketchup all around the globe. So it happens to be visible in eateries and so on, so people can get the ketchup on their meal and they are happy with the taste. But sometimes clients spotted that the ketchup inside the bottle is off. It tastes ugly and something is not right. It happens because with the popularity comes the price. Heinz ketchup is expensive, and eateries owners wanted to save some money, so they filled the empty Heinz bottle with another ketchup from another cheaper brand. And that is a problem for Heinz because it... give me a minute, I need to gather myself. It's bad for Heinz because it ruins their image, because they want their ketchup to be the name of the quality. So they hired a creative agency, and this agency is called VML. And they said that their goal is to put an end to this so-called ketchup fraud and to create an innovative solution that will help customers to experience real ketchup, not the imposter ketchup. And what can they do about it? They partnered with Pantone to find out the exact color of the Heinz ketchup. And they managed to do that. This is the exact color of the Heinz bottle of the Heinz ketchup, and it's called Heinz 57 Red. But what to do with this color? So VML thought that it is good to change the UI of the bottle of the ketchup. How? They used the color of the ketchup and put it on a border of the label, as you can see here. So clients can compare if the ketchup inside the bottle has the same shade as the ketchup they want to have. So they will know if the owner of the eatery provide them with a good ketchup or not. So when now we know a lot about the ketchup, let's summarize what we have learned so far. We now know that UX focuses on experience. We also know that UI focuses on the visual aspects. And we also know that UX may influence UI, and UI may influence UX. But what does it have to do with programming? I know you are waiting for some code. So let's move to that. Let's focus now on the code part of our title, because code is an interface itself. So let's imagine following situation. You've joined a new team, and you've received your first task. And your task is to fix some code, try to debug it, and maybe enhance it. And this is what you see. And you are thinking like, oh my God, who wrote that? But then you try to figure out what it's doing. So you can see that this function is called some stuff, so it's doing some stuff. Then you can spot that there is an error, something is happening with 3.14, so maybe it's a pi. Then you can see some radiuses prompted and so on. So you spend some time to find out what this function is doing, and now you know that this function is somehow related to properties of a circle. But you have spent a lot of time trying to figure out what is going on. We can reduce this time and reduce the cognitive load related to trying to find out what is happening by applying UX principles. UX principles are designed to make sure that final design meets needs of users while providing the best user experience possible. We have two fields that we are going to focus today. And the first one is Gestalt principles, and the second one is Nielsen heuristics for usability. Now let's focus on Gestalt. Gestalt is a word from German that literally means form or shape. It refers to a phenomenon that we perceive something as more than a sum of its parts. Let's imagine you have an image and it consists of several parts of something. We don't perceive it as a sum of the parts of every individual part, but rather than a whole picture. And I don't think you need an example for that, because did your brain fill the gaps? All right. There are several Gestalt principles, as you can see, but now we will focus on these four because I find them the most prominent ones for programming. So let's start with similarity law. Law of similarity says that human eye tends to perceive similar elements in design as a complete picture, shape, or group. So in this visual example, we can clearly see that we have two types of dots, light dots and dark dots. When it comes to the programming, we can have two types of visual grouping. First one is naming of the variables. So here we have two naming conventions. First one starts with a lowercase letter, like first name, last name, age. And there are probably local variables. The second type of formatting uses uppercase formatting, and it probably refers to global variables. For the second type of visual grouping, we need our IDE. So let's apply it our favorite theme from IDE. Much better, right? Here we have color grouping for keywords, variable names, other types of variables like string and numbers are colored with different color. So it's easier for us to see what is what. What is a keyword, what is a name, what is a value. Now let's move to the law of proximity. It says that objects that are near each other or proximate each other tend to be grouped together. And as in the previous example, we have seen that there were two groups of dots. Here we can see it even more. So we have a gap between one group of dark dots and a second group of light dots. When it comes to coding, we can do exactly the same thing. We can use blank lines to separate related variable names from each other. So here we have some variables regarding a person, other variables regarding cat. Then we have group of global variables, and then we have a function to greet our user. And now I have a question for you. What do you see? Option A, 4 Pac-Man staring at each other. Option B, diamond in a front of 4 circles. If you choose option A, please raise your hand. I can see some hands, yes. If you choose option B, please raise your hand. More hands, great. So there is no right answer, but if you choose option B, I have bad news for you, because you are affected by closure law. It says that humans tend to fill the blanks to perceive complete objects. So there is no square. This is quite a complex shape. And the second example you've already seen. So your brain filled the gaps. In a programming, this example is quite more complex because In the first line, we can see that at the end, we have a curly brace. And then in line third, we have closing curly brace. This braces allows us to perceive this block as a block, because there is no rectangular shape or border that will tell us that this is a block, but we still perceive it as a block. The same thing happens in Python when you don't have braces that open and close the function, but you have indents, just like here, that will help you to find out what is the function body. And now on to the last of Gestalt principles, law of pregnancy. It's also known as the simplicity law, as human brains tend to perceive everything in its simplest form. So here we have a logo of Olympic Games, and our brain tells us that this is shape that consists of 5 circles. But what if I tell you that this is not true? This shape is quite more complex, because here we have some C's curves, and then we have lenses in between. But our mind tells us that this shape is made of 5 circles. And when it comes to coding, here we have a very long variable name. It's quite hard to read, right? But when we apply some specific cases like camel case or Pascal case and so on, it is much more easier to read, because we tend to perceive words in its simplest form. So now we have a very long variable name. It's easy. Now when we've covered Gestalt principles, let's now move to Nielsen heuristic for usability. Nielsen's heuristic is a set of 10 rules or principles that helps us to design products. They are created by Jacob Nielsen. You may also know a man called Don Norman. They partnered together to create NN Group, which is a consulting agency that helps people create products. These rules are called heuristics because they are really broad, and they are the rules of thumb. So they are not very specific, but they can be applied to products. And they can be applied almost to every product. For example, a mug. So let's now focus on this mug and try to apply some principles to it. So here I have a mug. But before I jump right into Nielsen's heuristics, I want to ask you to demonstrate to me how to use a mug. So please demonstrate how would you drink your morning sip of coffee. Yes? This way? Great. Great. All right. So now this that you show me, it means that this mug is quite easy to use, right? We all know how to use a mug. It has a handle, it has a top, open top, and a stable bottom. We all know that its purpose is to be filled with something and probably to drink the contents. Now, if we want to know how many liquid is inside, we can clearly check it out, because I can look on the top, through the top and see if there is any liquid. Fortunately, there is none, because I would be very embarrassed if I spill something on myself on stage. Then, this particular mug looks like every other mug, probably. It has handle on the side, it has open top, and probably every other mug you can buy looks the same way. Let's check it out, because I have another. Yep, this one is with pushing the cat. I couldn't not bring this today. So I have 2 mugs that literally look the same and have the same purpose. Now, if I have any contents inside and I place this mug on the side, probably the content inside will spill. So every mug works that way because if I put this mug on the side, the content will spill off as well. And we don't want it to happen. But we can prevent this from happening by placing mugs on a stable bottom. And everything is fine. No more errors. Then we can clearly see what is the purpose of the mug just by looking at it. So it has a handle to carry it around. And the design states that this mug should store something. For example, it could store a liquid, it can store some snacks, and so on. And if you really don't like this particular mug, you can store some pens inside. But I like this mug, so I don't want to. All right, and now the decoration does not hinder the usability of this mug. As you can see, there I have pushed in a cat as a cupcake. And I still know how to use this particular mug. The same thing is with the second one. Here I have a variation of this is fine meme, but I still know how to use this particular mug, even if it looks quite different. Yes, hot mug still can be handled because I can clearly check if there's something hot inside just by touching the walls. And if the walls are hot, I can use the handle to carry it around. And last one, help and instructions. If this particular mug have any special needs, I can check on the bottom. This one doesn't have. But what about the second one? No special needs, but it's licensed by pushing the cat. So it's original. So we've covered the mug, but now let's move how to apply this to code. I have divided these Nielsen heuristics into 4 groups. First one is code structure and formatting. Second one is naming and coding conventions. Third, code efficiency. And fourth, help and documentation. Now let's cover the first group. There we have user control and freedom, which suggests that we should use intuitive code structure so every developer knows what to expect. Typical tasks can be made without a documentation. So if you want to print something and so on, you just can do it without reading too much. And the last point is quite controversial, because when I was preparing for this presentation, I've encountered different views on that, and another tricky situation. Okay, when I asked my colleagues what they think about this particular point, they said, oh, okay, it's good to write some comments in code because I know what is going on. Different person said, I think that code should document itself and I don't use comments anymore. And it's quite hard to make a very strong statement on that because it is true that comments can help us when it comes to difficult coding structures, some difficult solutions that are needed in this particular place. But maybe we shouldn't do them too much. Don't write the documentation in code. And there is another controversy, because different persons said to me, but we use doc strings in coding and we generate documentation from them. Well, it highly depends on your project. And my opinion is that it is recommended to write some comments, maybe not too long, just to explain what is going on and why did you choose this solution or not. But don't overdo it. And I think you need to consult with your team and developers to get a common solution for your project. But let's move to another aesthetic and minimalist design. I suggest to avoid clutter because it makes our brains to work harder and it doesn't lower a cognitive load. I suggest to keep formatting consistent again so the developers know what to expect. And here I say do not overload code with comments. But actually, if you use the very long doc strings and you can hide them somehow using IDE, I think it's fine. And now to the code example. Here I have a class for stock. And here I have used some comments, but maybe it's a bit overdue, but just for you to see how it may look like. We expect for stacks to have functions to push elements onto the stack and to pop them from the stack. So here we have them. It's common, and everybody expects that. We can also add more functions, like isEmpty, to check if stack is empty, and provide some comments what this function is doing, and provide a meaningful name. Now let's move to another category, naming and coding conventions. Here we have a match between system and real world. As I said, use clear and understandable names and familiar convention, because it is easier to deduct from the name what is going on, what this particular variable is for, and what this function is for. Now on to consistency and standards. Use logical code structure and consistent formatting, again, but also use standards specific for a given language. For example, if we have Python, we all use indents to indent the code and provide function body, and it's fine. When we have Java, we probably use curly braces in a new line below the function name. It is fine if we are consistent. But let's say we have a very custom convention in our product. Let's use it if everybody uses it. It's fine. And the next one, recognition rather than recall. As I said, meaningful names are important. But again, it is important because our brains work that way. It is easier to recognize what is going on rather than trying to recall it from our mind. And again, consistent formatting, as you already know. And we can also use our IDEs to provide us with some code completion and snippets, which I highly recommend because we can skip time when writing some boilerplate. And meaningful comments. We already know that comments are controversy, but if they are meaningful, they shouldn't do any harm. Now on to code example. Here we have a simple calculator. And every calculator in a word has a function to add numbers and to subtract numbers, even a physical one. So we have these functions here. We have add to add two numbers, and we have subtract to subtract two numbers. But when it comes to the function call, it works quite differently than a physical calculator, right? So here we can provide a comment that we subtract the second number from the first, if it's not enough to look at the function body. Now on to code efficiency. Please provide visibility of the system status. For example, if we write a script, please provide a message that will say us how many progress we've already done. And just to let other developer know that this code is working, that it's not just stuck. Then we can also use to do or please fix commands to let other developer know that something is missing, something needs fixing, there is a bug, and so on. And also, my favorite one, provide clear error messages. Because something went wrong is not a meaningful message, right? We need to know what is happening, why it is happening, and what can we do about it. Now on to error prevention. We should minimize the possibility to make errors. For example, by using of typing or by the data validation, because we don't have to care about errors if they are handled well. And again, use self-explanatory error messages, and that's it. We should be covered now. And the next one is flexibility and efficiency of use. We can provide some shortcuts for experienced users. For example, we can divide a long function into two pieces for someone who doesn't, for example, want to calculate things, but just to print them. Then we can use efficient algorithms and code optimizations just to make our code better and faster. And we can avoid redundant operations, so our code is not only cleaner, but it's also shorter. And for the example, here I have a function to process a file. It has a fix me command, so I know that this function doesn't have any checks for file extension. Then I have some console logs, so I know what is the status of processing the file. Then I have some errors that are printed, so I know what is happening. And last, I have some types that will tell me that, OK, file data has a content, and this content is a type of string. And the last category for Nielsen heuristic is help and documentation. We can help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors by providing them with clear messages, but also by storing logs to which we can refer later, and by writing some tests. I don't like writing tests, but I know they are needed because they help us to cover functionalities, and when they fail, we know that something went wrong. And the last, I promise, help and documentation. We can use code comments, as I said, but we also can provide some external resources like READMEs or online resources for developers to refer to when they have a problem. We should keep this documentation organized and keep it up to date. This is very important because we don't want to provide the developers with all the information that is not longer useful. And here we have an example of a README file. I strongly recommend to use table of contents as a shortcut for experienced user. Somebody doesn't want to read a whole file, so he can refer to the table of contents. And then we have some code snippets provided, some examples of usage, and so on. So now we know a lot about UX principles. Let's move to another joke. Have you heard about the paradox of an active user? Please raise your hand. No? Nobody. OK. So this paradox tells us that people don't like to read instructions. And they think they can actually jump right into action. But it's a paradox because users can save time in the long term by reading the instruction first. And we don't want to end in the following situation when we have to read whole documentation again because we haven't done that first. And now, time for a practical example. This is what you have been waiting for. So, for reminding you, this is the code we encountered before. This sum stuff function. Now let's fix it by applying our favorite IDE theme. Much better. We have applied the similarity law now. Then let's fix that errors by providing meaningful error messages. For example, we can say, please enter a valid positive number for radius. And when we are printing stuff, we can say what is printed. For example, an area or a diameter. And we have try and catch to catch some errors. So we prevented some errors now. Then let's name this function properly. So now we know that this function calculates some circle properties. So let's name it that way. Calculate circle properties. And let's name variables as well. So we have provided the radius. We can also have variables to store area, circumference, and diameter, and so on. We now have meaningful names, so our code matches between system and real world, and we have also applied similarity law. Then let's apply some consistency and standards. And I often see if statements to be divided into several lines, so I've done that here. And then I applied proximity law with the gaps between the parts of code. And now on to the last one. Let's provide some user control and freedom. We don't have to have a long function here because we can divide it into parts. For example, calculate circle properties can only calculate circle properties. And then we have another function that prints these circle properties provided by an argument. And now we have it. No, there's more. We have error prevention as well because we can apply some types. We know that every circle has following properties like circumference, area, and diameter. So why shouldn't we type it as that? And we can also provide this type as a result of our calculate circle properties function and then as an input type for our printing function. And this should be that. This is our work and this is what we've done. I think it's more clear, it is more readable and so on. So I think we've done a very good job. What is happening? I think I got a message. No, who dares to write to me during the conference? Let's check that out. Oh, it's a message from fellow developer. Karolina, but your code takes so much more space. What is happening? I get you, I understand, but I have to say that shorter is not always better in terms of usability. Of course, you may want to say that, Karolina, but when code is longer, it is not readable. I disagree with that. And also, I have to say that always consider your project needs, because maybe you don't want to have long files because you want your file to be small. So that's okay. You don't need to write comments, but you can use another laws and principles to provide users with documentation. Documentation can be external. And we can also have any other law applied if you don't want to use any other particular law. There is always something you can use. So now, I will leave you with something to remember. And if I have to pick 3 things for you to remember, the first one is write code for humans, not for the machines. Because as we see, we are biased by cognitive biases, and machines are not. Provide clear messages, especially error messages, so users can recognize what is going on rather than recall it from their mind, which causes a cognitive load. And the last one, embrace documentation, as it is a good starting point for your project. Thank you so much. And we have some time. We have some time, so I'm waiting for your questions. I can see any questions.
Any questions?
One question.
We have one,
yeah.
Great.
Hi, great speech. And the question is if your follow developer is a tool, like linting some extension in your GUI, and is constantly change your, for example, if statement from 3 lines to 1 line. Mm-hmm. What then? What is your experience with such extensions and tools?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question. And again, as a user experience designer, I have to say it depends. Because it really depends on who is going to use that code. If you provide your code to another developer, maybe it's good to change it, but again, only if this is consistent. So in every other place in your code you are using if in one line or a ternary operator, it is fine because everybody expects you to do so. If user of your code is the machine, I would not care. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, so I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karolina.